Good morning and welcome to the show to be named later. I'm Ben Krakow, alongside me as always Garrett Jones and Chase Phillips. Happy to be with you on another Wednesday morning. Plenty going on in the sports. We're matchup tonight. Mizzou at home taking on a ranked Auburn team looking to pick up a win.
I mean, look at all their records. They're all above 500. So, like you said, I don't know if it's them being mediocre. I just think the SEC is a powerhouse this year when it comes to basketball, which is something we're not used to saying. But I don't really think there's a top team in this conference either. I think, they're all pretty good teams like we talked about on Saturday.
When we look at Auburn, we'll get to this a little bit more with Bennett coming up, but they have very good guards and that sort of lead their play. And Mizzou was talking about that yesterday in their media day. But, when we look at the Mizzou point guard situation, obviously they lost Blake Harris to a transfer and now down to just Jordan Geist and Terrence Phillips. Chase, how important is point guard play going to be tonight against a team where, as we saw A&M, their strength was the big guys on Saturday, but Auburn's strength is in the backcourt?
I mean, that's going to be huge tonight for Jordan Geist and Cassius Robertson to be very effective as guards because Mustafa Heron and Bryce Brown are two of the best guards in the SEC. A few nights ago, Auburn played against Georgia, and Bryce Brown had 28 and Mustafa Heron had 14. And so, I mean, those two really lead this team. Not having Wiley or Purifoy really affects this Auburn team, but they've sort of overcome it because Bryce Brown's been unreal this year, averaging almost 17 points a game.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned it. And this Auburn turnaround is pretty inspiring and impressive in the SEC because Auburn for a while was just, what do we know about Auburn basketball prior to Charles Barkley or the fact that he went there? That's about it. He's really the only bona fide NBA talent I can think of coming out of that program. But they've really turned things around under Bruce Pearl, and they're a testament that it can be done. And, they get out and play their game. That's the number one things that I noticed. They don't. No matter who they're playing, whether it's Kentucky or Vanderbilt, they don't back down, and they push that. I think that they're very, very close to competing with South Carolina and Mississippi State, but they're just a little off. And I think that this year they're going to fall into that category. And I do expect them to lose both of those games, but I think that the Georgia game is going to be a good test for this team, and I think they're going to go out and win it.
And, Ben, like you were saying, Sophie Cunningham probably doesn't have as many friends in Columbia, South Carolina as she does in Columbia, Missouri. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how she responds, really. I think she'll get a lot of that road team, the boos every time they touch the ball. Anytime she does something good, the crowd's going to start chanting at her or something. Anytime she does something bad. So it'll be really interesting to see how she plays because this Missouri team
to be joined by Bennett Durando. He's the Mizzou men's basketball beat writer for the Maneater. Bennett.
A win against Auburn today could be an Auburn team and I honestly could be 500 by the end of conference play. There's so much nuance with what's going on with these teams. It would certainly be a big win as things stand right now, especially with the team with Mizzou grappling around 500 in conference play.
Yeah, and like we were talking about that earlier, in the SEC this year, there's not much of a powerhouse. They're all kind of good teams except for Vanderbilt. They seem to be lacking behind, but all of them have, above 500 records. Bennett, who would you say is actually the best team in this conference?
I thought Texas A&M going into conference play. Whether that's still true, I'm not really sure anymore. I thought they were catching their stride. Then they go to LSU and lose by 15 last night, and that's sort of emblematic of how ridiculous this conference has been. You have teams like Tennessee, and you mentioned Vanderbilt being the clear bottom. It seemed like Vanderbilt played within 5 at Tennessee last night. No win is easy. No win is guaranteed. So you look at Mizzou's schedule the rest of the way, and you say, oh, they should win this game against Ole Miss. Oh, they should win this against LSU or Vanderbilt or Mississippi State. There's no clarity there. Auburn might be the most talented defensively. I mean, Bruce Pearl's defense is not fantastic. I think Mizzou could score 70 against them today, and this is a Mizzou team that's been struggling to score lately. We'll see how Auburn plays out. I think they're one of the more fascinating teams in the conference.
Saturday's performance was pretty ugly to watch. You can slice it a lot of ways. We certainly tried to dissect it. What did you see offensively from the Tigers on Saturday that just did not work?
A lot. They're still trying to get through where they need to be in their backcourt. And Jordan Geist, I think, honestly, is not a horrible person to have running the point. He still has to learn to be in that lead role there. And I think late game level-headedness is a part of that, especially if you're going to be a point guard. There was not much level-headedness from anyone on the Mizzou team against A&M last week. Against Tennessee, what we saw was different. Geist had a tendency, the turnover against Florida, the last play against Arkansas, and then he makes smart plays down the stretch against Tennessee, where he makes the play to foul intentionally with 4.5 seconds left. One of the smarter plays of the season so far for Missouri. But whether that can be resolved in a more clear way, shooting wise, we still don't know if this is a good shooting team, honestly, because I mean they're just so hot or cold, and I guess that's college basketball in a nutshell. But still, it's so hard to tell at this point, and that backcourt is.
If we have any newcomers to the show, basically this is stuff in the sports world with our own teams, with other teams that are bothering us. And I guess I'll kick it off at a couple points. Number one, we've seen a lot of feuding among teams in the NBA. We've seen it with the Cavaliers, with Kevin Love, his teammates claiming that he might be faking an illness to get out of a blowout loss. It seems like things are blowing up there. We've seen it with the Wizards, John Wall, Bradley Beal. Those guys had a team meeting, which they called unproductive, which you don't see all too often. To me, these guys, they may have differences. They may see things differently. But at the end of the day, they got to stop fighting. They're on the same. I'm all good with fighting in hockey. But if you're going out there and just looking to pick fights and you're not looking to actually play hockey, there's no point in you being out there, right?
We're all anticipating, Zion Williamson. Where is he going to go? And I respect the kid. He makes his decision. That's fine. But my thing is with Duke, I understand you want
to... Not to interrupt you, Chase, what was his decision, just for our audience in case they don't know?
So Zion Williams' decision was to choose Duke over Clemson, South Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina. And, my thing with Zion Williamson is, I understand you want to play with the two, you're the number 2 player in the class. You want to play with the number 1 and number 3 player in the class. But why wouldn't you want to go to one of these universities and make a name for yourself instead of, I understand you want to be on a super team, but me personally being a North Carolina fan, I couldn't stand the fact that Zion Williamson went to Duke. So